Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Can I acknowledge the member for Gellibrand for putting this matter on our agenda and thank all those who have spoken on this debate, and my friend the member for Leichhardt and before him the member for Werriwa. Like them, I am pleased to stand up and speak out against violence against women and children. It's really important that every man in this country understands their obligation as men, to stand up and speak out against violence against women and children. It's not acceptable under any circumstances. We know it. We need to make sure every man in Australia knows it, understands it and does something about it. We must take responsibility. I'm proud to be a white ribbon advocate and a major supporter of grassroots campaigns in my electorate. Men speaking to other men about violence against women is a powerful catalyst for change. And it's men I want to talk about here today who, in my own electorate, are making a difference in terms of accepting their responsibility to speak out. But we cannot escape the facts. In the Northern Territory, a third of police time is spent dealing with domestic violence, and Aboriginal women are victims in 70% of all cases. As of June 2016, 83% of reported assaults in Katherine were associated with domestic violence, in Tennant Creek 67%, Alice Springs 56%. These figures are deplorable. In my electorate of Ringaroa, domestic violence is sadly an experience too familiar for too many, and it's so sad. In September last year, a renounced white ribbon ambassador, the then CLP Attorney General John Elfrink, said in Parliament that he was tempted to figuratively slap opposing Labor MP Natasha Files. What a thing to be said by a person who is supposed to be an Attorney General responsible for justice and looking after the community. In my electorate, there will be 3 white ribbon marches calling out exactly the behaviour exhibited by Mr Elfrink in Darwin, Katherine and my hometown of Alice Springs, as well as communities across the rest of the Northern Territory. In part of the White Ribbon Week on Thursday in Yuendamu, there is a community songwriting competition to say no to violence. I want to refer now to the No More campaign. A No More campaign started in 2006 with the principal advocate being Mr Charlie King, a very great and very good Australian, a great man for standing up against violence and abuse within families against children. The momentum for this came about because Aboriginal men in the Northern Territory saying they wanted the voices to be heard in consultations about family issues, including family violence. And I want to commend men like Johnny Little in Alice Springs at the Central Australian Aboriginal Congress, who was at the forefront of organising marches in Alice Springs, seminars and camps around issues to do with family violence and violence against women with attracting people from across Australia. I want to commend the people in Katherine. I participated in the march some years ago, marching up the Stewart Highway, blocking the Stewart Highway, talking about violence against women. These are important initiatives, and it's wrong to think, as some people would have us believe, that all Aboriginal men are violent towards their spouses or partners or women and children generally. That is not the case. There are many great champions. Charlie King and Johnny Little are but two. And it's important that I think we take the message of Charlie King's No More campaign and do link arms together to say that we're fed up, it's not going to happen, we will not accept that it's an appropriate way to deal with women or differences between men and women and children. It is just not acceptable. And we need to say we support and recognise the things that are being done by AFL teams and rugby league teams across this country who are saying if you've been found guilty of an offence involving family violence, you can't play our game. That is important. A great disincentive for people to be involved in family violence, and developing advocacy around family violence and teaching young men about their responsibilities towards women and children in their communities. But we also need to be understanding the importance of addressing the needs of the victims. And I do know that men like me, and I'm sure like every other man in this parliament, believes we need to make sure services designed to address the needs of the victims of family violence are properly funded. And to that end, I want to talk about QUILS, the Katherine Women's Information and Legal Service, and CALLS, the Central Australian Women's Legal Service. These organisations are dealing with the victims of family violence. These organisations need the support they're currently not getting from the federal government. And I say to the federal government, you do use this opportunity of this week to understand that it's our mutual responsibility to support these women and advocate against family violence, and particularly violence against women.
Yeah.